altered states. The work teaches that mankind is an experiment upon the earth, an experiment in self-evolution. It also states that many similar experiments have been undertaken through time and proven to be failures. That it remains quite possible that humanity too could be found to be deficient in like manner. In which case we would become very small and insignificant like the ants or bees. Great nature remedies such mistakes simply through changes in scale. Over a few generations the mighty are thus rendered meek. Ants obviously began to tamper with themselves, following some kind of scientific logic or reasoning, sacrificing everything that might make them individual, even their wings and their sex. Becoming subject to purely empirical organization, arranging themselves entirely for the common good. This much is obvious, for they attack one another mercilessly and are utterly ruthless. P.D. Ouspensky, when asked what the best conditions of life were, said that the best conditions prevailed when esoteric teaching can reach people. All esoteric teaching, he said, has as its basis the idea that mankind can undergo a change that is already possible for us and has been arranged for. Humanity is a more complex organism than is necessary for simply existing in this world. We have far more in us than is necessary to sustain ordinary life. We can therefore become individuals, which is the real meaning of our existence. However, in that regard we are an experiment of the solar laboratory, and may yet prove a failure. This means that humankind is made a self-developing organism. It does not mean that humans are ready-made, but that we must find that path within ourselves to follow. For this reason teaching is always sown into the world, given in various ways and outer forms, to show us what we have to do, in order to recreate ourselves, to evolve and meet our potential. The general tendency, though, is to disregard individuality, and to bring human life under vast collective schemes of social security and so on. This turns us more and more into a state-dependent, a government-controlled collective, making people less free in the name of liberty and personal gain. As such, we become beings that are told what to do and think, seeing the goal of humanity only in some future of time, lying in an increased mass amalgamation and general uniformity spreading over the surface of the globe. Everything would then be the same, and no doubt nature will be deemed conquered, as is often hoped. However, the work teaches that this would represent the beginning of the end for us, that another experiment would then need to evolve in our place. We need to remember that nature means many things in this teaching. Many influences act upon the earth, coming from 6 different levels of the universal ray of creation. Apart from the 3 forces belonging to our planet itself, which maintain their own balance. To conquer nature really is not that easy. Unfortunately, however, many lunatics exist today across science and politics. Lunatics in the sense of work definitions, expanded from the categories of householder, lunatic and tramp, as defined in this work. Many hasnamus, the anagram formulated from the names of Hitler, Stalin and Mussolini by Gurdjieff and his followers. Those who rose to power during the last century, whose well-being depended solely upon the ill fortune of others. This combination of hasnamus and lunatics never augurs well for society. Phaedo, narrator in the dialogue to ch40, attributes to Socrates that, quote, "We are glued to our senses, and for this reason lose contact with ourselves, losing our way along the path. The soul or time body becomes saturated with outer subjectivity, with possessions, pleasures, and the desire for power over others. The soul must turn around to find its true direction, and so restore to us the realities and meanings that we have abandoned. Our soul is a sensory organ that relates us all to influences at a higher level of intensity than the basic influences of materiality. Socrates teaches that, when the soul returning unto itself reflects, it goes straight to what is pure, everlasting and immortal, like unto itself. Then being related to this cleaves unto it when the soul is alone and there unhindered. Thus the soul rests from its mistakes, and is like unto itself, even as the Eternal is with whom the soul is now in touch. This state of the soul is called wisdom. This can be found throughout the teaching of this work. Little is said of the soul, however. The work points out that essence has descended from higher order within the ray of creation, passed down to the level of the earth where it must fall, into materiality, where it must become encased by personality. For those who possess some vague recollection, for those who develop magnetic center, a way back emerges. By working against personality, and rendering it gradually passive, so that essence can grow. Through the growth of essence we reach individuality, real I. After struggling with the duality of emotions, emerging in balance and equanimity as spiritual warriors. In this state of being, we attain consciousness at another level of influences. Once fully grasped, the idea that we are experiments alters a little the relation to ourselves and to our lives. Try saying to yourself, I am an experiment. If you say this correctly, in the right place within yourself, you will notice the meaning of the phrase, striking against something resistant, something that will not believe it, something that perhaps may want to kick and scream rather than accept that viewpoint. We may already have noticed this concept in relation to other ideas of the work, how something is totally disinterested and hates to listen to them, going on, as it were, all dressed up and fancy. The truth is, however, that we are indeed experiments. P.D. Ouspensky further added on one occasion that, quote, we are experiments of very little significance. The earth is very small, and we are but smaller still. Such ideas are scarcely acceptable to that thing within us that we call ego. The more one catches glimpses of the truth of the ideas in this work, the stronger one becomes. Why? Because that thing that wishes to close its ears and scream with indignation is precisely what makes us weak. We are told to remember ourselves, that we were created with this power but fell asleep. So now we have first to get back that consciousness of self, and return to ourselves. Reflecting upon Socrates' observation which surmised that we are glued to our senses, suppose we look around and think of where we are, saying, I am here in this place. But that is not where we are from the work point of view. Where we are from the perspective of the work is the state that we are in at this moment. We may be in a room, but not all in the same state. To see state in oneself, it is no good being glued to our senses. Most people only believe in the realities of their senses. However, one's state is a far more real thing. In an ancient Indian text, a conversation is reported between a pupil and the angel of death. Death explains how man incarnates in order to die, and says, God made sense turn outward, man therefore looks outward, and not into himself. Sometimes, a daring individual has looked around and found themselves. Then they become immortal. The realization that one is not in space but in state comes only by means of working on ourselves. How can we work on ourselves if we never look around and notice our state, notice where we really are inside? Here is the beginning of that experiment, to separate from useless states, and to remember oneself. This is what we all, as an experiment, have to do. Otherwise we fail.